fog.
It was really back and forth in court between the two, so this means Jodi Arias and Juan Martinez will square off in the battle for her life next month. Jen Wood is a reporter for the Trial Diaries. She was in court yesterday. She's joining us now from Phoenix. Jen, did Jodi have a reaction when her lead defense attorney petitioned the court again to be excused from defending her? What was her reaction?
She really didn't have much of a reaction to that. Jodi went in there very confident and very attorney-like. She was ready to represent herself, and she wasn't letting what Kirk Nurmi was saying shake her at all. She was talking directly to the judge, and she had a lot of confidence.
And what sense did you get from being in that courtroom, just in terms of the emotion that was there, and just with regard to the attorneys? You know, Susan and I were talking, and certainly Kurt Nurmi and Jennifer Wilmot, they have wanted nothing to do with her or this trial. What was the reaction amongst them as well as the courtroom watchers?
When we first arrived into the courtroom and Jodi had come in, she instantly went into a very active conversation with Jennifer Wilmot, and you could tell there was something definitely going on. There was a lot of paperwork being passed around and shuffled, and we were all sitting there wondering, what's going on here? The last time we were at a hearing, Jodi had said she didn't have time to represent herself. So all of a sudden, we were getting a little bit of a feeling that maybe she was going to do this again. And sure enough, the judge asked her point blank, Jodi, are you ready to voluntarily represent yourself? And she said yes.
Wow. Jen, were there any family members of Travis Alexander in that courtroom, or was it a closed court session? Were they allowed in?
It was an open hearing, but the only people that were really there were 3 reporters and a press office person. The court PIO was there. And there really wasn't anybody else in attendance. Nobody for Jodi's family, nobody for the Alexanders family, but I'm sure they're notified of what's going on, you know, as soon as the hearing's over.
Sure, I'm sure they are, Jen. I think the general feeling, though, is whether or not, you know, she's in over her head again. You might remember, Jen, that initially she tried to do this, and then she said, wait a minute, Judge, you know what? I need the advice, I need the counsel, I need the representation. So certainly, Jen, what had happened here, I think you could confirm this, is that these attorneys will stay on as advisors, but she will be the main person leading her own defense, correct?
Correct. They will remain as advisory counsel, but the judge told Jodi, you're on your own, and you need to realize this. And Jodi Arias responded, yes, I understand this. I'm ready to do this. Last time she did try to represent herself, she was trying to get in evidence. And when that didn't work and go her way, she ended up telling the judge she wanted representation from an attorney again.
Yeah, Jen,
so we're left to wonder.
Go ahead.
Yes, so we're left to wonder if she's trying to get something in once again, and we'll end up asking the judge for Kirk Nurmi to start representing her again. She has that option.
It's amazing what's going on in that courtroom, Jodi. Obviously, she thinks she can save her life more so than her attorneys, and her attorneys are saying, okay, we're not going to take the steering wheel here. It's been said the more that the jury gets to know someone, the less likely they are to maybe hand down the death penalty. Do you think that's where she's going here, to try to talk to the jury?
You know what, Susan? But that's a risky proposition, because that presumes that they like you when they get to know you. And certainly I understand the whole humanizing. You want to present yourself in front of the jury and have them get you and bond with you. But she may very well annoy them, because this is about Travis Alexander. It is not about you, Jodi Arias. And if the jury gets the sense that she's making it about her, then it becomes a major problem, Susan.
Well said. All right, Jen, thank you so much for joining us and bringing us into that courtroom. Jodi Arias, though, wasn't the only accused killer
Relationship with Travis. A few months before trial, and by that I mean jury selection, my hair was past my waist, and I donated it to Locks of Love, the nonprofit which creates wigs for cancer patients who've lost their hair. In fact, that was my 3rd donation to that organization since I was arrested. If I'm allowed to live in prison, I will continue to donate to that organization for the rest of my life. I've received many requests from women to teach them Spanish or American Sign Language. Because my case was pending, I just didn't have the time. In prison, I will.
And that was Jodi Arias pleading for her life during the penalty phase of her murder trial, which ended in a mistrial. You might remember that the jury was split. 8 jurors being in favor of death, and 4, well, they were opposed. Now she'll be defending that life in court herself. Both of her defense attorneys, Kurt Nurmi and Jennifer Wilmot, will simply serve as her advisors. They have requested several times to step down from defending Jodi, but the judge has said, no way. HLN law enforcement analyst Mike Brooks, my friend defense attorney Bob Schalk, and reporter Jen Wood all are here to sort out the drama. So Jen, let me start with you. Give me your reaction when you learned and heard Jodi Arias is on her own.
I was really shocked and really thinking in my head, this is the trial of all trials. I mean, not only was Jodi Arias a huge trial first time around, it's going to be doubly huge second time around.
And, I mean, the stakes are just so huge to begin with. So, Bob, I got to ask you, defense attorney extraordinaire, if you thought about this and thinking about at this stage of the game, Bob, is this a wise move? Is it not a wise move? What is she thinking?
Never a wise move, Joey. Never, never, never a wise move. And here's why. Because the most important aspect of this case for her at this point is the verdict of the jury. There is no way Jodi Arias is going to be good enough to pick a jury where she needs to get at least one person to hang that jury. Because if she picks the 12 wrong people, obviously it can spell the end for her.
Exactly. And Mike,
but during the first trial, who was the smartest person in that room, or at least who thought they were the smartest
Jodi
person in that room?
Arias.
Jodi Arias.
Right.
So she's got the stage again. So it's all about Jodi. It always has been, Joey.
And that's the problem, Mike. And that's the fear. Because, you know, there are two sides of the equation. And Jen, you know, you can weigh in on this. And Bob, I'll come to you also.
Okay.
But listen, the bottom line is that some people say it'll help her bond with the jury, right? She'll be in front of them every single day. But Jen, in order to do that, they have to relate to you. They have to like you. They have to connect with you. And if they don't, Jen, guess what? It's your life.
Right. And the thing with Jodi Arias that came across during the first round was that she comes across as arrogant and she doesn't really come across as remorseful. And that definitely will have an impact on this jury.
Absolutely. And Bob, that's the point, is it not? I mean, look, you want to show remorse, you want to show you're contrite, and you want to show it's not about you. It's about Travis Alexander. Comes back to that jury.
Absolutely. And here's the problem. She's going to be able to address the jury through her testimony. But the thing that you're going to have is this. You're representing yourself. There's going to be a great deal of pressure on the judge and the prosecutor, who they don't like each other, it's abundantly clear, to protect that record so there's no further appeals. But how are you going to get in front of that jury and not constantly annoy them by objection after objection after objection after sidebar? She does not know what she's doing. She's not trained, and that's only going to annoy the jurors. And if they're annoyed by her, they're not going to listen to a word she has to say.
And Mike, therein lies the problem. And to Bob's point, does she even know when to object? I mean, I know, you know, to
And
your
on
issue.
what grounds?
Precisely right.
She doesn't know the law. Or she may think she knows the law. You know, the law according to Jodi Arias. But let me tell you something. Juan Martinez is going to eat her alive.
I absolutely believe so. So just a quick round as we go around. I know it's too early for predictions. A lot will come out. But Jen, what happens this time around? Quickly. What do you think?
I believe she's getting the death penalty.
Bob Schalk, I ask you.
Unless she brings her attorneys back in, death penalty.
Mike?
I hope death penalty.
I don't know what'll happen, but it is likely that she shall get the death penalty. Dream Team is sticking around. All right. And not only the Dream Team, but we want you to weigh in. Should Jodi Arias even be allowed to represent herself? Please go to HLNTV.com.
No push-button extension. Covered by nearly all health insurance and Medicare plans.
State of Arizona versus Jodi and Arias.
Oh my God. 911 emergency. A friend of ours is dead in his bedroom.
Once she begins stabbing him, it's not a situation where she stopped. She killed him 3 times over.
It's a grisly tale of passion gone wrong, of sex, lies,
I'm not guilty.
and a life brutally cut short.
So what are people saying about this new twist in the Jodi Arias trial? She will get to represent herself at her sentencing. We got hundreds of comments on this from viewers in just a few hours. Want to read a few here. Jenny Woodley says on Facebook, wow, well, let her speak. She will only dig herself a bigger hole. No one is going to believe a word that she says. And Penny May says, you know what they say about a person that wants to be their own lawyer? They have a fool for a client, enough said. And finally, Kat says she can't possibly think that she could dig herself out of this mess. I will be interested to hear about this fiasco Juan is going to chew her up and spit her out. She wants to be the center of attention. Well, she is now getting her wish. We also got lots of questions for our legal team as well. The Dream Team is back. So I want to touch on that, Joey, in terms of Juan Martinez. What do you think he's thinking right now when he hears he will be going against Jodi Arias?
You know, I think it's a little disappointing because from an attorney's perspective, you want the best quality representation in that courtroom. It brings out the best in you. And when you have a seasoned and very skilled prosecutor like he is, I'm sure he wants the best. And to go against her, I think it's a bit disappointing for him.
Bob, do you think he can be as aggressive as he was in the first trial without turning off the jury?
He's got to be careful because there's going to definitely be a fine line. I mean, the judge himself and Judge Stevens, as I said earlier, are going to have to make sure they protect the record for her. I know that sounds silly, but the last thing that anyone is going to want to see is a higher court overturning what happens here. And, they're going to be the ones who have to, help marshal in the evidence appropriately. But, I mean, he is going to definitely have to, I think, tone it back a little bit. But I still think it's going to be impossible for him to do it because I think Jodi's going to get under his skin with all of her antics.
And he is who he is.
I think you're right. I want to get to some of the tweets here. Joey, I'll start with you.
Sure.
DJ says, how can that be? Is that legal? So, of course, it's legal or it wouldn't have been granted, but how so? What's the legal process?
You know what happened, Susan? We have all these amendments. One is the Sixth Amendment. It's a right to counsel, but the right to counsel doesn't mean that a lawyer has to be foisted upon you. And in fact, there's an old case, 1975, Ferrati versus California, and what it says is that you have a right to counsel, but if you waive that counsel right and you do it knowingly and intelligently, guess what? You can represent yourself.
All right, Bob, another question for an attorney. Does the state have to pay her to be her own attorney? Is she going to see any cash?
Well, no, she's not going to see any money. But as we all know, I think at last check, the bill for her attorneys was over $1.5 million, and they're going to get paid to sit there next to her this entire time. And let's think about it. The first trial started in December of 2012 and didn't get over until May 2013. Who knows when this thing's going to end?
Yeah, Jen, do you agree that this could really be drawn out here, especially with Jodi representing herself?
I really think it could end up being longer than maybe expected, especially with jury selection. That was expected to go 3 to 4 weeks anyway, and now we're going to have Jodi Arias void diaring potential jurors. This is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, there's a list of some infamous criminals who defended themselves. The D.C. sniper John Allen Muhammad, Fort Hood shooter Nadal Malik Hassan, serial killer.